Greetings and welcome to another Stranded Deep update video for update 0.11. Yes, that's right, Stranded Deep has been updated once again to version 0.11, and this update comes with a bevy of new items and systems, which I think should really help to enhance the early game and getting yourself established, and it's nice to see them focusing on some of the survival mechanics now as well. So let's jump in game and see what is new. One of the things I noticed, and I don't know if this is actually new in this version or not, but when you create a new map, when you highlight these randomly generated ones, they actually have names now. Look, Southern End Island, Great End Island, Little Endless Corner. Oh, Little Endless Corner. We should visit Little Endless Corner. It's due north, assuming this is actually north, south, east and west. So one of the things that happened in the previous update, I think, was the return of the intro movie. Oh, yes. Okay, well, we skipped the intro crafting bit. We just have a nice crash scene. But let's just skip the rest of this now. I'm sure you can enjoy it yourself if you choose to. So here I am on my little life raft, and of course I still have my tie on, and I'm generally looking all swish and lovely. And out there is the fantastic and beautiful ocean that we know so well. But let's just head in. Look, hold to interact with the raft. We still do the power squat. Something weird going on with my fingers there. And in fact my whole leg. Kind of weird, but never mind. Let's just head in towards the island using the power squat maneuver of raft thrusting that occurs currently. I'm sure we'll get an actual paddle back soon. I'm sure that'll return. Fear not. So, what is new in this update? What is new in version 0.11? Well, there is quite a number of changes to the survival system and to game time. Also, they've slightly rearranged the watch so that it's slightly easier to see with the new body that we've got. So if we select our vitals, you can see we now have a new sleep vital that we need to top up on a regular basis. Otherwise, we get all cranky. I mean, actually, we just can't run. I think that's the primary effect of being out of Z's. Also, I think they've sped up the rate at which water and food is used. Water will be used up in its entirety, I think, every day, and food will be used up every 3 days from full. And once they're empty, you'll start to lose health. So we need to stay on top of that right from the very beginning. So there's much more survival impetus on us. So let's get ourselves started, shall we? We need to just go around and... we need to go around and pick things up. I think there's some UI changes and improvements. Look, the font there is a little bit more readable and things. Also, you'll note we don't start with anything except for the lighter now. We don't start with the water bottle or the knife that we used to. So, look, there's still this dubious yellow... Still the dubious yellow crabs, weirdly sliding along the sand at the moment without animating. It's kind of freaky, but there we go. I probably should be able to use a stick as a basic weapon, but I can't. So we're not going to. Just pick up some rocks and other things. Oh, I really don't like those yellow crabs. I really don't like them. It feels so forced. It feels so gamey. I don't know what they were thinking, or what they were smoking, more likely, at the time, because whatever it is, I think perhaps I would need to have some before I understand quite what they're getting at with that. Anyway, I'm just going to run around and gather up all the stuff that I can find loose lying around this island, and then once I've done that, you can rejoin me, and I will show you the new stuff that we can craft, and the new changes to the crafting system. Okay, so this is what I've managed to gather up on this starting island. There's a few things, obviously, that I could harvest, but basically, we've got a pile of rocks, we've got a pile of sticks, a bucket, rather usefully, and also a couple of tarps, which I hope should turn out to be useful as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the new things that we can craft, and the new ways that we can craft them. Opening up the crafting menu, we still have the campfire, campfire pit, and campfire spit. However, these now work slightly differently in the way you actually put them together. Let's start with the campfire. Of course, it takes 4 sticks. We'll just pop that down there. Looks like a nice spot. And now we'll upgrade that to a campfire pit. Now, previously, when you created the campfire pit, it would just choose the nearest campfire and upgrade it for you. However, now we select the campfire pit as we did before. It requires a campfire and a rock, but we can go ahead and craft that. and then it snaps onto it. Look, a bit like when you're building buildings, you've got to snap if you can kind of use something that pre-exists in the world. There we go. Look, we have added a ring of stones around our campfire to make it more effective and more campfire pitish in general, which works pretty well. And of course, this is a system that I think they're going to expand on, and we're going to see used for all of these little things. And actually, it's used quite extensively in this update for the various different new and improved ways of cooking and indeed of generating water, which is a big part of this update. But before we get onto all of that stuff, we're going to need to make ourselves some tools because we're going to need lashings for most of these things. Of course, you also need lashings for the basic tools like the hand axe, but because we don't start with a knife, we've got no way of actually chopping down. So how do we harvest the yucca? Well, the way we do that now is with a new feature or a new item called the stone tool. A basic cutting tool created by carefully hitting a rock with another rock. Crafting will only consume one of the 2 rocks required. So there we go, we need 2 rocks, only one will actually be consumed, and there we go, we've done it. Now this is effectively replacing the old chipped stone, the old, like, you would take a stone and you would break it in half and that would give you 2 stones. It effectively replaces that with a crafted alternative. I don't know if you can still break the stones in half. I kind of hope you can, because that was, a bit more immersive. I kind of like the way that worked. But we can use this as a hand tool to just harvest up some yucca, and the yucca now drops fibrous leaves rather than directly dropping the lashings themselves. So we have to pick up the fibrous leaves and we can craft those into lashings. Here we go. So a lashing requires 4 fibrous plants. So we got 6 off of the 1 yucca. So that's now 1.5 lashings you get off of a yucca plant rather than 2 as it was before. And it's another step in the crafting. Now, I assume there are going to be other things that you're going to want to use fibrous plant material for, and maybe there are going to be other sources of fibrous plant material. Otherwise, it's sort of arbitrarily introducing a step. If there's nothing else you can do with fibrous plant material, and there's nowhere else that you can get fibrous plant material from, why bother having it? Why not just drop the lashings directly as it used to? So I assume that's coming. I guess there's just nothing in this particular update on that. So there we go. We'll make a few more lashings so that we've got a decent number of them. Using the lashings, the stone tools, and a stick, we can then create an axe, a basic cutting tool with poor durability. It's the same old axe, basically, but we now have a kind of a progression, a clear progression to get to it, and we don't just get the knife straight off the bat that lets us immediately then craft a stone tool. It's a nice step, and it certainly helps to define the early game experience slightly more. I don't think in practice it's going to make a great deal of difference, because very, very quickly you'll establish this. I suppose what it does do is it makes it a little bit easier if you lose all your tools to start over again, because you can just create a stone tool from any piece of, any 2 stones you find lying on the ground. You can create a stone tool, and then you can start cutting, and you can recover yourself if you need to. So that's quite a nice touch. I suppose, if you happen to... Oh, look, a quara fruit. We'll grab that for later. So I think that's definitely part of what this update is all about. It's all about providing a better, a more coherent new player experience and a more coherent game going forward, which absolutely this game needs. In fact, I think they haven't gone far enough. I think there are still things in this update that aren't finished properly and that don't hang together. And, I think with early access, it's not just an excuse to release beta software and to have people playtest for you. A person, I've said this many times on many forums and in many places, early access is not beta testing. It's not the same thing. And, an early access game should be a complete and playable game, but just less feature complete than it will be ultimately when it's released, in inverted commas. That's my opinion on the matter anyway, and I'm sticking to it. I'm going to chop this up because I think some palms are going to be necessary for building the next thing that we're going to take a look at from this update, which is a shelter. Alright, so I've got my palm leaves, and I've managed to gather up a little bit more yucca and other things. I'm just going to light my campfire here because night has fallen, which means it's kind of a suitable time for me to whip up the next thing that we need. I'm just going to craft a couple of lashings whilst I talk here. So one of my complaints previously about the game is that there really was no reason to need shelter. Obviously, by including sleep, which is now a mechanic in it, you do actually need to have a bed. You do need to have some way of resting in order to replenish that stat. So that's a nice touch. It's a nice thing to add. They've also extended the requirements further by having the necessity to go to either a bed or the new shelter, which you can find here. And you have a requirement to go to that in order to be able to save the game. Which is, I mean, I understand why they're doing it. You know, some games do that sort of thing. Some devs like that sort of thing. I tend to think that, you know, for the most part, players live in the real world and are sometimes called away from their computer unexpectedly, and not allowing them to save the game at any arbitrary point just kind of creates the potential to frustrate and irritate people when those things happen, you know? So there you go. Anyway, we can now sleep here if we want to, and we can save the game, as I said. And it's a nice little shelter. I mean, it is kind of on the ground, and anybody who has watched Bear Grylls, or The Island with Bear Grylls, I should say, will know that one of the most important things you need to do when you arrive on a desert island after securing food and water is to build yourself some kind of raised bed. So what this shelter offers over the bed, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, yeah, okay, in theory it protects you from the elements slightly, although I'm not entirely sure. I think I could only really fit my upper half in there, maybe. It's pretty small. I mean, maybe I'm just a bit fat, I don't know. But it does look like it's maybe going to shelter my head, and that's about it. So, yeah, it's a nice thing to have. It's another thing that we can build. That's all good, and it's tying together some of the game mechanics that I think do need it, and I'd like to see that continue and extend it on. But what else can we build? Well, let's extend our campfire here to add a spit to it, one of the new campfire spit model, which is nice. We'll stick that on, targeting the middle of where it's ultimately going to be. Again, this is a standard rule in Stranded Deep, which you have to remember, and always manages to catch me out for some reason. Let's go night hunting for some something to put on the fire whilst we've got it burning away there. I'll have you, and I'll have you. Just like flick it off the end really violently. Rah, take it off, and you as well. Rah, take it off. There we go. I took it off, and now I have it in my inventory. Of course, food does spoil now, and especially crabs, I imagine. It's quite dangerous to eat after they've been sitting around in tropical heat for some time. Look, there's some fruit there. We'll just leave it there for now. Let's pop a crab on the spit to cook it up. Now, what I'm not entirely certain about is whether I need to cook the crabs first or not, because the answer to food spoilage is, of course, to smoke it. It's smoking it is always better, right? That's what I was told in college anyway. So, a smoker, here we go. We can build one of these, but first we need to build a campfire. So again, this is something that's built up off of the campfire base, so we now have effectively a kind of a branching system that you can build different things off of. You start with a basic campfire. I think pretty much everything requires you then put a ring of stones around it, because that just makes it better, apparently. And then you put various different things on top of that in order to make the various different things that we might want to make. For example, a smoker. Like this one, which I'm having some slight difficulty placing at the moment on the campfire pit. But it's because, once again, I have forgotten the golden rule of target where the center of it's going to be. Of course, that can be a little bit difficult the first time you build something, because you don't know where the center it's going to be. Turns out this actually sticks way up into the air like this, you see? So you need to target up there in order to place it. Lesson learned. Also, I'd quite like to be able to rotate this around, but I don't know if there's any way of doing that. So we'll just place it facing in this direction and accept that that is the way that it's going to be. There it is, our new smoker. So the idea is that obviously you light the fire underneath, smoke rises up and cures whatever you put in there. At least I assume that's the way that it's supposed to work, because I wasn't actually able to figure out how to put something in there. Look, we have a go with a crab, and normally there'd be an interact option here, but no, I tried to click and I've just eaten the crab. Yep. That's what happens when you eat raw crab. You are violently ill. At least you are in Stranded Deep, and probably in the real world as well. So that didn't work. I thought maybe it was because it was uncooked crab. So I thought I'd try cooked crab. Although I'm not sure if you're supposed to have cooked or uncooked crab go in your smoker. As it is, I just ate the cooked crab, which was tasty and delicious, but wasn't what I was trying to get at. So I thought maybe it is uncooked you need. I thought I'd try just placing it in there as well, but it just passes straight through it and has disappeared. Oh, it's on the floor there. I didn't see it at the time, but that is where it ended up. And so how to use the smoker? I don't know. I never figured it out. But hopefully it either is just a bug and it will be fixed in a hotfix, or maybe there is a simple way of doing it. If you know what that is, by all means leave a comment, let everybody know, and I will update people in the future. Sort of tied in with this, they've done quite a lot of work on the drinkable water system, which of course includes drinkable coconuts, which is what I'm having a go at right now. What is going on? I've put it on like a glove. This is my glove coconut. It's so that I can do what I am now going to invent, which is the new island sport of coconut shell boxing, where you put a coconut on each hand. Obviously, I can only actually put it on my right hand because you can't dual wield, unfortunately, at the current time. But, devs, maybe we could dual wield coconuts. Maybe you could wear a coconut like this and use it as a weapon to fight sharks and things. Just punch them in the face with your coconut shell hand glove thing. Yeah, maybe? No, perhaps? I don't know. Anyway, that's quite enough of that silliness. What I was trying to get at here was to demonstrate that you can now refill coconuts, drinkable coconuts, with water. But of course, in order to do that, you need to be able to generate water. And one of the things that they've added to allow you to do that is the water still, which you can craft out of a bit of tarp, some rock, and some sticks. And we're just going to stick it up here by this big stone, just because. And there we go. Look, down it goes. Clearly, by the way, it has palm fronds included in it as well as other things. What do we actually need? A rock, a tarp, and a bucket. Yeah, okay. So even the sticks weren't actually needed, but it clearly includes sticks and lashings and all sorts of other things like that. But the idea here, the premise, of course, of a still is that it was able to water will condense on the tarp there, and it will run down it, and then it will drip into the bucket, and then we can drink from the bucket. So the idea, I suppose, is that in the mornings, which is when you normally get dew forming, normally when you get condensation, that we will get maybe a water drop or two appear in there, and we can then go and refill our things from it. There's also the water collector, which is a much more active way of getting fresh water, and I'm building one of those right now. So we start off with a campfire, as always. We build a fire pit around it. There we go. Then we have to go up to a spit, which we put on it like that, and then we can build our water collector here, which requires the fire spit, sticks, tarps, and lashings. Pop that down, targeting the middle. And the way this is going to work is you light a fire at the bottom, you have a bucket full of seawater there, and then the steam that comes off of that will condense onto the tarp at the top and run down to a bucket or other thing that you have suspended underneath it that will collect all of that water. Okay, so a couple of days has passed, and indeed I have saved the game and reloaded it because I had to put my cave island into it so that I could actually find some of the materials that I needed to finish this off. And the still has produced 2 water drops. Look, and I can use one. I can fill my coconut up with one, and then do it again and fill it up again and drink by punching forward with my coconut boxing gloves. Honestly, things like this really let this game down at the moment. I can't say how disappointing it is to have such unfinished and missing, especially when they're so small and little, and it really wouldn't take that much time and effort just to polish up and make sure that you had animations for all of these things in, because really without them it makes the game feel unfinished, and it makes it feel not just like an early access game, but like you're playing a test build. This should be in the experimental branch if you're not going to have the animations for it yet, if you're not going to have decent animations for it yet. Anyway, look, I'm just going to fill this water bucket up here, with some salt water so that we can try the water collector in operation as well. So we just put the bucket of salt water at the bottom there, get our lighter out, light it. We've put an empty coconut here to receive the water, which can contain 1 water droplet, which is why we've got 1 water droplet above it. I think if we had a bigger container, like another bucket, then we would be able to fill more. But I don't have. I've searched high and low. This is why 2 days have passed, because I searched the entire world for a bucket and I couldn't find one. And I even put Cave Island in order to hopefully find a bucket, but I couldn't find Cave Island then either. So I might go out and try it again, because it would be nice to get a bucket. And also there's one last thing that we need to take a look at, which is the Hobo Stove, which is like an improved cooking device. So let's do that. Whilst that is busy boiling off water, it seems to take quite a long time to fill the coconut up, but I don't know how long exactly. I guess a while is how long it takes. So I'm going to head off and see if I can find Cave Island again, and I shall come back with hopefully another bucket and a barrel to build a hobo stove. Okay, here we go. Another epic journey later, and I have returned with a barrel. I'm going to create, obviously, a basic campfire again, then We can't go straight for the campfire spit, obviously. We need the campfire pit first. There we go. Pit and spit. There we go. Now we just need to pop the barrel on top and craft the actual hobo stove itself. Not the hobo wizard stove, of course. That would be incredibly scary and disturbing. Fire pit, barrel scrap, job done. And we just pop that on top. And there we go. It's like a barbecue, isn't it? It's like a little barbecue. It's quite a nice touch. How do I actually use this thing? Let me just go and hunt up some crabs so that we can give this thing a go. The idea, by the way, as I understand it, is that we can cook two or more things, potentially, at a time. So it's a more efficient way of cooking up stuff and using your available fuel and things. Look, we got the whole flicking off the crabs thing again. Oh, dear. Okay, so with that done, we light up the hobo stove, we get out our crabs, eager to cook up a lovely crab barbecue, and the question is, how do you actually put the crab on the stove? Interacting with the fire just turns it off. Trying to put a spit on it to give us something does not work. There's no interact option around the top of it to be able to put the thing on it. I don't know. Basically, I never figure this out. A bit like the smoker, I can't figure out how it's supposed to work. Now, ordinarily, there's just an interact spot, and you interact and the thing goes in there. But neither of them seem to have that. Is that a bug? Is this something that we'll see a hotfix for? I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the next couple of days. If you know how these things are supposed to work and I've just done it wrong, like I said, please do let me know. At least leave a comment so that other people are not left so baffled and confused. But that's basically it for update 0.11. There's a lot of good in this update. The game, I think, is moving in the right direction. I just wish that rather than all of this happening in the stable release, that this was all happening in the experimental branch. I wouldn't have any complaints if this was all happening in the experimental branch, but I feel like this is not the way to do early access development. And it's actually getting to the point now where I nearly didn't make this video. I nearly, I'm not sure if I want to continue to support, in inverted commas, Stranded Deep by making videos about it, just because I'm not sure if this is really the way I think this sort of development should be being handled. So I don't know if there will be an update video for 0.12. I guess it will depend to a certain extent what is included in 0.12 and how I feel in general, and how well this video does, and what you guys think, and your comments and other such things. But until then, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I have been Weird Wizard, and I will see you later.